Hey, and welcome to an episode of the Roving Nothing Ventured podcast. We're here at the Dream Factory in Chance Street for the London Venture Capital Network drinks event. Looking forward to getting some hot mic'd, scandalous 3-minute bites from all the various guests that are turning up today. It's going to be a hot evening. Looking forward to it. Awesome. All right, cool.
Camera rolling. Okay.
Hello and welcome to another Nothing Ventured on the Roam here at the Dream Factory at the event sponsored by the London Venture Capital Network. Right now in the studio with me, I'm really excited to have with me Rosie Olympio. Rosie is an investment associate at Lightpace VC and the head of investor relations at the London Venture Capital Network. Rosie, great to have you here in the studio.
Great to be here. Thank you, Arish, for having me.
No, absolutely awesome. And for our audience to get to know you a bit better, what was your first ever job?
So my first ever job was in human rights. Out of high school, I just decided to take a gap year because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I worked at an anti-human trafficking organization in New York.
So it was just lightweight, low-key.
Yes,
okay.
Saving the world, ending human trafficking. But I was disillusioned by the public sector because things don't change. You do such a small thing and you think that it's going to make a difference, but you realize that it's not.
Yeah.
And that just sort of was the first step to turning me away from the public sector.
Yeah. And so how did you actually make the move into venture in that case?
Yeah, so after that, I worked in politics in Togo, West Africa. And
so it's just out of the frying pan into the fire.
Into the fire. And I worked for the presidential campaign. It was brutal. I think my first day, I was taking pictures of the city to sort of do a documentary about, the livelihood of people. And that same night, my house was broken into.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, okay, this is politics. Great, fun, but at the end of the campaign, I was just sort of this isn't really the life that I want for myself. And I decided to focus more on law. And when I came to the UK, went to King's College, we had the King's Angel Network and they were hiring. One of the VC partners wanted someone to work at their firm. So I just sort of applied, never really know what VC was. My idea of finance was, my brother works in private equity, investment banking, very hardcore finance. And I was like, that's not going to be the life for me. But yeah, I applied for the job and I got it. And I loved it. I started off at investor relations, just talking to people, getting people passionate about the fund. And that's how I got into VC.
Amazing. And what do you think you'd be doing if you weren't in venture?
If I was not in venture, I would probably be a human rights lawyer, hating my life, helping people, but going home and crying every day because I feel very connected to people's stories and they're going to tell me that I went through XYZ. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to take it very personally. And it just wasn't good for me.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine that would be quite soul destroying, especially if you were doing that in the UK today under the current kind of regime, if I can put it that way. Not that this is a political podcast, let me just be very clear. However, I have to say I'm not very happy with the direction of travel here in the UK. But on to more interesting things. Tell me a little bit about Lightpace VC. What sort of businesses are you looking to invest in? What stages, what geographies, what is the kind of portfolio thesis and where do you see it going?
Yeah, so Lightpace VC is an emerging fund. We focus on financial inclusion and climate tech across Europe and major African markets. So South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Egypt, and Kenya.
Yep. I was going to say, if Kenya wasn't in the mix, that was a problem. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we focus on pre-seed and seed. Our fund side is 25 million, 250 to 500K tickets. And yeah. We're just hoping to find very bullish founders who are trying to solve real life problems. Climate tech is very, a lot of people think about climate tech as carbon counting, but there's so much going on out there. You have this amazing company that uses drone to map out the terrain, see what crops are going to survive based on the changing conditions. So these are the kinds of startups that we look for.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've talked about it tons of times on this podcast. We've had a number of guests. We've had one of the COO of WeFarm. We've had Egosa Omigui from Echo VC, Toyosi from Extension, and the conversation I have with everyone around tech in Africa is that founders in Africa are solving real on-the-ground problems that affect millions, billions of people, right? Like these are not small problems that are being solved. And, they aren't investing in, how do they get 15-minute groceries off the ground? Like it really is stuff that will change the lives of, people on the streets, in the villages, in the cities, like whether that's mobility, whether that's access, whether that's, financial inclusion, whatever it might be, right? Like, and as you just described, like, soil mapping and using drone technology to, improve crop circulation and even education around like, how you should rotate your crops. These are things that, seem very obvious, but, often for smallholders, it isn't top of mind, but could make a huge difference to their lives if those were dealt with. So let's talk a little bit about maybe the pipeline for Lightpace. Like what are a few businesses that you're really excited about?
So there's this one company that I love. It's a South African company. So I grew up in South Africa. And one thing that we do in South Africa is called lay-by. So you go to a store, you have this beautiful dress you want to buy, you can't really afford it. And what you would do is you go up to the counter, like open an account and pay every month. They save the dress for you.
So like Klarna in reverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially what they do is they made that digital. And you have an account with Happy Pay. You pay for this one item that you want every month. You decide if it's going to be like half of your paycheck, 2-3 times. You send the money and they save your item and you pay for your item. They don't have an interest rate, which is amazing. And it was founded by really amazing techie people, but you also have like major celebrities. You have Ayanda Tabete. She's like a very big celebrity, very like avid speaker of inclusion, and she's amazing. You have Maps. He's been on so many talk shows as well. So having this backing has just been great in pushing the company forward. And just when I came across this startup on LinkedIn, I was like, oh my God, like this is something that people go through every day, and they just took a real life problem and made it techie. And that's what we love at Lightpace, is just identifying what people are going through and just making it very techie. It promotes inclusion because people who can't afford this item in real life, like real life scenarios.
Yeah, they can't just go out and buy it
exactly.
today if they wanted to buy it. Yeah.
Exactly. So they have an account, they get to track, okay, I'm this close to getting my item. And these are the kinds of things that we're very excited about.
I mean, the other thing with that, if you just think about it, and I've talked about this in context of other startups, there are plenty of people that are unbanked. This actually allows for some form of kind of credit scoring over time, which means that they maybe then can get access to other products over time that can hopefully ameliorate their lives, whether that's personal lives or whether that's in their business, right? I think that's an amazing application for something that we wouldn't even think about here in the UK. Like the first thing we would do is go out, get a credit card and rack up a bunch of debt at usurious rates. So I think that's a really amazing example. Rosie, thank you so much for joining me. For our audience, where can they find you? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on Twitter? Where's the best place for them to find you online?
Yes, we're on LinkedIn, and our website is lightpacevc.com. I'm directly interacting with everyone who sends messages there. So I promise it's not one of those empty holes that you send messages to. So I will get back to you. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here tonight, Arish.
No, thank you. It's been wonderful. And thanks to the London VC Network and all the work you put into that for hosting this event. It's been absolutely amazing.
Of course, really glad you could be here with us. And thank you for supporting.
Always.